Welcome back to WTF is on my mind. There's always a lot on my mind, and something that's been on my mind, not even just recently, for years, is I suppose what I would call the war between men and women, which seems to have gotten way worse the last, I don't know, maybe decade. It's almost like there's some kind of weird social engineering to pit men against women, you know, the sex against the sexes, to pit cultures against cultures, races against races. I know it's very conspiratorial, but, you know, kind of feels like that. Or I'm just imagining things. So what I decided to do, because I've been having amazing conversations with one of my mentoring clients. Her name is Carina Eriksson, and she is a dating coach. I'm going to intro her in a second. She's very smart. She's very wise, and she's got me to think about a whole bunch of things that I hadn't considered or hadn't thought about, or things I was trying to understand. So I've invited her on today. Let me tell you a little bit about her really quickly, and then I'm going to have her jump in. So Carina Eriksson is an international matchmaker and dating consultant with over 20 years of experience. She's worked with one of the most elite matchmaking companies in the United States, and now runs her own boutique firm, Atlas International. So at Atlas, she helps some of the world's most accomplished individuals build meaningful, lasting relationships, something everybody wants. Her work focuses on what she calls relational agility, an approach that blends science, psychology, and spirituality to help clients strengthen their relationships with themselves and others, often by bridging the misunderstandings between men and women that get in the way of real connection. I'm not very religious, but hallelujah, sister, because that's what we need. So Carina, welcome.
Thanks, Mark.
You and I have been having a lot of chats, and I really wanted to get you on because I'm so consumed with this topic. And one of the reasons I'm so consumed is this terrible polarization between men and women. And as a man, I've just been experiencing so much male hatred, mostly online. I don't experience it in my life with the people I know and love and my friends and acquaintances, but online there's just this hatred. And so when you and I began working together and you started sharing a lot of what you do, I was like, holy shit, this is really good stuff. So I want to just launch in. Is there anything I missed, by the way, with your intro?
No, that's perfect. Yep, that says it all. And I like the succinctness of it all.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Okay, so let me just launch in with the question I told you I was going to ask you, which is, wait, before I do that, let's do a little bit of background.
Yeah.
Why this of all things? Why dating coach? Why matchmaker? Why the study of this?
Yeah. So to me, all life is relating. We're in constant, constant isn't even the right word, but we're in constant relationship to ourselves, to others, and to the world around us. And most of us were never taught how to have good relationships with ourselves or anybody else. It's sort of, it's just not something you learn. And unless it's modeled for you in early childhood and as you grow up in your family of origin, most of us don't have those skills. And we don't understand that we're deeply inhibited or deeply prevented from living like a really full life because of that. And particularly in the West, it's not really the same so much in other cultures that haven't followed our, sort of progression toward money being God. In other places, relationship to others is still taking precedent over what people can create for themselves strictly financially. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
yep.
And then personally, it's what I'm most interested in, most passionate about. It always has been. It's what I sort of fell into. And I think, nobody wants to talk about relational agility, but what people do want is meaningful relationships, and particularly loving relationships, romantic partnerships. And so when I started working in that field professionally, intentionally about 15 years ago, it was already building on a foundation of introducing people and working on myself and understanding how important relationships are in general. And then it sort of evolved from there. And a lot of people think they can solve the problem of why they're single and they don't want to be, especially because they've solved that in sort of the things that they want to have in their life that they don't through just hard work and making it happen. But there's sort of a combination of the fantasies created around what romantic relationships are, and then the lack of skill sets or skill building in and around relationships that prevent people from getting this aspect of their life handled, if that makes sense. So I don't know. Yeah.
That's an interesting thought, because I never thought, I've been married so long now. I didn't do a lot of dating in my life. I never thought about that it's an acquired skill.
Oh, yeah.
Like, until I met you, I was like, and we spoke about it, I was like, it's an acquired skill, really? I mean, I know that players, play.
Yeah.
And there's female players and male players, and they play, but I'm like, an acquired skill. All right, well, let me start with this, because there's a ton I want to talk about. So, okay, what do men need to understand about women? I know this is a big question. And what do women need to understand about men? Like, like their life depends on it because shit's not working.
Yeah, that's a huge question, but I'll answer it as simply as I can in the most basic way, which is we have to understand that we're not the same at all. While we share, we're human beings, we're basically two different species. We don't think the same, we don't behave the same, we don't operate at all in the same way, and we're projecting how we function, how we think, how we behave on the opposite gender, and presuming that the other gender is misbehaving because we don't understand that we're not versions of each other. So one of the women that I deeply respect in this field says this perfectly. Women often think men are big, hairy, misbehaving women, and we treat you as such. And you can't understand that we're not tiny, irrational, chaotic garden gnomes that like are pretty to have around, but you want us to stay quiet and not be annoying when we're disrupting your, let's say, single focus, which we can talk about in a second. But fundamentally, we are not the same. We are not misbehaving versions of each other, and we need to understand that we're not the same and be curious about how we're different and foster. Hopefully, once we start to be curious about how we're different, and we start to discover those things, fostering fondness and appreciation for those differences and how they're complementary is really critical, because they are very complementary. We're literally built to fit together, not just physiologically, but also in sort of every other way, emotionally, psychologically. We're very complementary creatures, but definitely not the same.
Yeah. That when you told me that idea that we think that the other is the misbehaving version of ourselves, I was like, holy shit, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Like, I have female friends, and why can't the men just be more feminine,
Oh
and male
God,
friends, why can't, right? Why can't women just be more masculine? Why can't they just be more logical, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And we're just missing each other completely with that attitude.
Yeah, we are. We don't see the differences. We see them, but we misunderstand them. And because of that, because we think there's a problem, we can't respect how the differences are actually useful to each other and quite beautiful, really. And go ahead.
I wanted to jump in with something quickly, because this is personal, of course, and I think many men and many women will relate to what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
It has taken me a long time to even understand the idea that when my wife is sharing something with me, it's not to be fixed.
Oh.
And I know it intellectually, but I forget it because I feel valuable if I can try and solve the problem that I believe she's presenting me to be solved. And so as a man, I don't understand why. I do understand, but I'm just giving you the sort of visceral feeling.
Yeah. I
don't understand why you're sharing this with me if it's not to be done, something to be done with.
Yeah.
Like, let me fix this. Let me, let's do this. Let's like make fucking charts and diagrams and say, this is the pros, this is the cons. So explain to me as a man, what is going on when a woman is sharing and what it's like for a woman to have a man try to fix it.
Okay. I have to dial it back a little bit. So I'm going to use Sarah Edmondson's wonderful squirrel thing that she does, because there are some tangents that sort of we have to go off on to make this make sense. But fundamentally, men are built to produce results, and women are built to build connection. That's how we're wired. So we have to go back to what different hormones do to the human brain. So men, as we know, are testosterone dominant in the brain. And what testosterone does to the human brain is it creates singular focus. All right. So singular focus means, if you go back sort of anthropologically through our history, and I'm being really simple here, so please, nobody needs to come at me. All right. These are just concepts. They're not rules.
There'll always be somebody.
Yeah, God bless. But basically, if you think about it anthropologically, men, how you guys are built, you're physically built bigger, stronger, faster than us. And in our history, your job was to protect and provide. And providing especially, and protecting, had to do with hunting the deer, or killing the saber-toothed tiger, right? And why men developed through testosterone this ability, not even ability, this way of operating of singular focus. Because if you are focused on other things besides hunting the deer or killing the saber-toothed tiger, you're going to die. If you're chasing down a saber-toothed tiger to protect your family, and you're like, gee, I wonder what my wife's doing back home now. I wonder what we're having for dinner. We're all dead, and the whole family's going to die, right? So testosterone floods the brain, excuse me. It creates this very singular focus. Women are very different. What estrogen does to the brain, and I mean, again, simplification, because there's lots of hormones going through us all at different times, but predominantly estrogen creates what we call diffuse awareness or diffuse focus. So our role is to build society and connection. And we have to have many things going on at the same time. We have to be able to focus on what we're making for dinner, keeping grandma from falling in the fire, keeping kids from, drowning in the river. Where are the best berries? Where are we going to move camp next season? So when you're at home and you can't find your keys and you say to Bonnie, honey, have you seen my keys? And she's like, yeah, they're on top of the refrigerator, while she's ironing and on a phone and blah, blah, blah. That's the difference, right? It's just fundamentally how profoundly different we are. And to your question about what it's like for a woman to share and communicate what she's feeling or thinking and have it be fixed, has sort of the experience is like, for us, building connection is something that we do automatically. We share stories. That's how connection is largely built with women. And for you guys, it's really frustrating because you want us to get to the point. Your singular focus is like, what do I do with this, right? My job is to produce results, which is to protect and provide, basically. So I don't have any understanding of how to take all this information in and then what you want me to do with it. What do I produce? What do I provide? That's where you guys get your sense of self-worth, value. And if you can't do that, if you don't know what to protect or provide, there's sort of, and correct me if this is not your experience, you'd be one of the first men who ever said that. But basically, if you're not able to provide a result, there's sort of the sense of like, what's my purpose? And then
Exactly
yeah,
right.
Go ahead. Yeah, okay. Right.
Identity crisis. Like, well, then I'm nothing. I'm meaningless. I have no value.
Exactly. Okay. So it's just very different for women. And I think one of the things women and men, one of the ways we're very different is women process through speaking. So we don't always know what we're thinking and feeling until we're speaking about it. So we're catching up with ourselves in real time as we're talking. And what we value in terms of relationships with other people, especially with women, because this is natural to us, is we build this sense of bonding and safety through connection. And one of the things that men don't understand about women fundamentally is we're very conscious, whether it's in the front of the mind or in the back of the mind. We are constantly aware of the fact that we are a smaller, weaker species, part of the species than men, and therefore very vulnerable. And, part of what we do in order to stay safe is that we build connection. We need community to stay alive, as we well know. Mm-hmm. It's part of the reason cults exist, which we've talked about, right? Mm-hmm. Community keeps us safe. One of the worst things you can do to a human being throughout history is ostracize them, shun them, kick them out of a community. And so with men, what we are doing very constantly is appealing to your sense of wanting to take care of us, protect, and provide for us through being pleasing. Okay. So we want to make you happy, because if you're happy, you'll protect and provide for us, and we'll stay safe and stay alive. Yeah. We just don't understand that you guys don't connect the way we do. Is this making sense?
There's so many tangents. Just give me a second here. So
yeah.
When I was just a cameraman, a cinematographer, one of the things I always did is I always had women in the camera department. And the reason I always had women in the camera department is because the whole film set felt better. The grips and electricians, which generally can be quite a foul-mouthed bunch, like they're sailors basically. A film set's like you've been at film sets, you know, you were in the film business for a while.
Yeah,
they're like fucking sailors. When I had women in the camera department, everybody was well behaved, and not like suppressed. Everybody was gentler. So I remember having that piece of information. So I always made sure there was at least one, and usually more, women in the camera department. Sometimes it was half-half. Sometimes I actually had more women, which was better. So I was thinking about that. Then I was thinking about earlier in my life, I would see conflict going on and women would sit down or they'd hang out and I'd be part of it. And then suddenly everything was fine. And I'm like, how the fuck's everything fine? I don't understand. Nothing happened. Nothing was done. There was no like, well, we figured shit out. There was just like, everything's copacetic and all the women are happy. And I'm like, I don't understand what just happened. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And yet I understood that having women in the camera department was a very good thing. But I think what it was is I think all I knew was that feminine energy was mystical. They're doing some mystical shit. I don't know what it is. It's amazing. Let's make sure we keep it there. Because all men, on film sets are better human beings when there's more women on the set. But to be honest with you, I still don't truly understand what goes on in that kind of communication, that relational communication, because my male friendships are very, very different. And even my female friendships, and most of my friends are female, I still don't understand what the magic is. What the magic sauce is of what's going on in this interrelating being together, because to me it almost seems like there's frequency vibes going on. There's something happening and I don't know what the fuck's happening.
Interesting.
But it always turns out better, whatever it is. Does my caveman question make sense to you?
I mean, it makes sense. I'm not sure how to answer it exactly, in the sense that, things are very specific, and I don't want to, women are great at building community. That's what we're built for, right? Connection and community. And that has a certain effect. Like one of the questions, I interview men a lot, formally and informally. And one of the questions I always ask men is, what do you like about women? And if they don't immediately respond by physical attributes, I like a good pair of boobs, I like legs, which is a frequent response. But when they hear the deeper question, which is, what do you like about women as a whole, or what particularly in your life do women bring that you value? Almost always the answer is, women are softer. They have an ability to listen to me and to care about me as an individual in a way that my male friends don't. I often feel heard or understood or seen or cared about or supported by women in a way that I don't by other men. And that is something we offer. And it's something that we offer each other. It is one of the sort of foundational elements of how you build connection with a fellow human being. We all know that feeling of being seen and understood and appreciated. It's fundamental to our survival and our happiness as people. And women tend to be good at that, because for men, I think when you have a singular focus, and you're trying to produce a result, that's one thing at a time, literally. And so when you're shooting a movie, it's like going to war. You have a list of things that need to happen in a reasonable, like in a particular amount of time, or shit goes sideways and there's lots of big consequences. So men aren't spending time thinking about anything but the immediate task that's in front of them right now that will ultimately serve this greater task. Nobody's thinking about feelings, whatever. But that doesn't change the fact that we're relational beings. And so probably what you're seeing is a women's natural ability to sort of smooth things out by being present and creating connection. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, because one thing I've noticed is if sometimes I bottle things up for a while, and then Bonnie knows. She knows the minute I begin bottling it up. Like, I don't even know I'm bottling it up yet. And then much later I realize, oh, I'm bottling things up, and I'll start talking, and then I have the space to be able to share, to unbottle, to share, and everything feels better because I finally expressed myself. You know? And
you had someone receive you who cares for you.
Yes. I want to just switch to something. I mean, it's all part of the same thing. So in this profession of yours, this dating consultant, and also you're a high-end matchmaker. 2 questions. I guess the first one is, what is the number one thing that women want and the number one thing that men want? Because it feels a little different. I mean, obviously it can meet, but what's the main thing men are looking for? And I don't mean in necessarily in high achieving clients necessarily. I mean, just the species, the other half. What is each one looking for, yearning for?
So I'm gonna go real esoteric. We all just want to be loved. That's it. It's really simple. We all just want to be loved. And most of us have egos that have strategies about how that should happen and what it should look like. And we can only be loved by certain people that look a certain way or have a certain amount of money or a certain education. And I'm not saying that building relationships or intimate partnerships, you can do that with just anybody. You can't. That's not how it works in that sense. So I'm not dismissing the sort of more fundamental question you're asking, which is, I think, more surface level in the sense of like, what particularly are men looking for in partnership and what are women looking for? If we're not talking about just the outside package of things, on a deeper level, men want to be respected. I think for men, respect is being loved. Men do not feel loved if they don't feel respected. Period. I mean, again, please jump in as a man if you disagree, but this is what I have discovered over time. And that looks a particular way to men. And there are certain ways, again, that we're fundamentally very different. Like, I was thinking about this last night when I was thinking about some of the things that we would discuss potentially today. And one of the things that I had to learn about men, because women are very different, is what loyalty means to and looks like to men. It's very different to women. It's very disloyal. Like, women don't realize there's ways that we function in the world as women, and we emasculate men in how we function. And there's lots of reasons behind that, and we can go into that someday. But fundamentally, a lot of our behavior, like, for example, criticism, is a particular emasculation technique, or that's what it ultimately does to men. We can talk about that in a second. But in terms of loyalty, one of the ways that we're different, men, we would never realize, especially if you weren't raised by a family or a mother who knew this, but you never criticize your male partner in public. You never say anything that would challenge him in public, especially in front of friends, or, you just don't ever. Women don't know that. Women have no idea how disrespectful and emasculating and damaging that behavior is, because it's not the same. I mean, we can talk about criticism in general, but I think we were talking about this the other day. Women have almost no defense against criticism, because how we function in the world and how we feel safe and connected, especially to our male partners, is to be pleasing. If you tell us, the world is criticizing us all the time, but if you tell us, even if you make a factual statement like, oh, dinner was cold tonight, no, we've just been criticized, and, and now we're not pleasing, and now you're going to let us die in the wilderness alone, So we have almost no defense against criticism whatsoever. If you want a woman to change, criticize her. She might resent you. She might be really angry, and you may pay for it, but she'll change. Dinner won't be cold next time. I mean, it might be, It might be something you don't like, but it'll be different. Women don't know that men are not the same, that you guys don't respond to criticism the way we do. It shuts you down. If you criticize a man, basically what you've told him is he's ineffective and he's failing and he's not making you happy. That does not make a man change. It does not motivate change. That lets him know that the results he's trying to produce, it's not working, and he's going to conserve his energy and put it towards things that do work. So if you want to see something different, you have to say, hey, I loved X, Y, Z, and it would make me super happy. You'd provide something I really needed if you did Y. And that's how we're different. Does that make any sense?
It does. It does. I mean, I didn't think about that women have no defense against criticism.
Very little.
Do women in friendship groups, is there criticism that goes on?
Yes, of course. And one of my least favorite thing about how women function in terms of, because I'm going to harken back to a question you asked earlier about the film set and smoothing out conflict and whatever, and sort of a magic mystical thing happens. It's not always pretty. The aggression that men have that you take out on each other in competition, or it becomes physical or even verbal, that is not acceptable for women typically. So what happens is it goes underground with us and it comes out as character assassination and gossiping and, bad mouthing and all that stuff. It's really ugly. It's really ugly, but that's the socially acceptable form. And it creates ostracization and all of that stuff. So it's ugly when it comes out in us.
Interesting.
I would actually, frankly, prefer the male version. I'd rather know if you have
because it's more up front. You know what you're dealing with.
100%. So it's just unfortunately how we've evolved, that you have to keep the social fabric intact, and we're just not the same that way.
I have so many directions I want to go, but let me just, I want to go back to something first, because you and I were having a chat the other day about this diffuse awareness, diffuse focus.
Yep.
And it blew my mind. And let me see if I have it correct.
Yeah.
You said to me that estrogen creates diffuse awareness rather than focused, linear, single-minded awareness.
Single focus, yeah.
Single focus. And I was like, that's fucking amazing, because I kind of forgot, and I have studied something about, biology. I kind of forgot that, it's funny. Let me just go back. So it's almost like I thought, well, why can't you just behave like me? Right? But now I'm like, well, I can't behave like you and you can't behave like me because of our chemistry.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, what Bonnie has to do sometimes is she has to check to see if she can bring up a subject, because I can't do 3 things at once.
Yeah.
Like, I can barely do 2, but I'm really fucking good at doing 1.
Yes.
Like, I'm really, really good at that,
Yeah.
And I don't understand how she can do so many things and think about so many things and feel so many things, so many complex things. And of course I understand intellectually, but I don't know what it's like to be like that, to be able to do that. It feels to me like I'm swimming in some place with no boundaries in this never-ending kind of amniotic fluid of subtlety, and I'm like, I don't know what's up and down. That's what I imagine it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. What does it, if you were to explain it, what does it feel like? That diffuse awareness?
I mean, it's like asking how to describe water feeling wet. It's the only way we sort of know. But I guess the way you might be able to understand it is if you take it out of the idea of masculine and feminine and you put it into the difference between the way we operate when we have a particular goal that we're working directly toward versus the sort of vibe that we have on a lazy Sunday afternoon. We're just sort of puttering around the house, reading the newspaper, making breakfast, where we have no particular objective in mind. And that's the closest that sort of you might be able to get. Like when you're not trying to produce results, when you're literally just, kicking back at home and feeling relaxed, that's a little bit probably the flavor. But you just said something really important, which is you don't know, and you really never will, and vice versa. It's the same, because even when women are in results producing mode, which we get into, I mean, in modern professional life, women have to be in this mode as best as we can, our brains being different, because we have to produce results just the way you do, right? And professionally, let's say. And that's why that's one of the things. I don't even know I'm going off on this tangent. It's a squirrel situation, but
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
But one of the things that I encounter a lot with especially the female clients, the coaching clients or consulting clients I get, is a lot of them have achieved a lot professionally. They've had, that being their primary focus in life for a number of years. Now they're turning and looking at their personal lives going, gee, I'm in my mid-30s and I want a partner and a family, and gosh, what do I do? And I better get on that. And they have lived so long in a professional environment where they are trying to produce results, which is a very masculine, single-focused, building their career or whatever, that they don't even recognize that their energy has shifted almost always into that competitive sort of masculine mode. And they can't understand why they're having trouble meeting men that are not passive and sort of in a more feminine, receptive energy, and which really is quite ineffective and unattractive to most women, just the way men, I'm going to say this kind of grotesquely, but, hunters don't want to fuck other hunters, right? Like, it's just not how it works. So you might respect a woman that you work with professionally that's in that results-oriented producing mode. You might even be in competition with her, but you don't want to take her home. You don't want to, you don't want to date a man in a skirt, right? Like And so that's one of the things that I can help especially professional women do, is shift back into sort of a receptive, sort of more feminine mode, so that they aren't in that same results producing, very masculine energy, and therefore either invisible to or unattractive to the men that they'd like to partner with.
When you're working with clients, are many of them are coming because they're looking for a partner, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to maybe fix a situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to talk specifically, but I'm like, what are the overarching sort of themes that you see that women are struggling with? Like, this is one example you just gave. And what are the things you see that the men are struggling with in terms of wanting to find partners? What's standing in their way? I know they are standing in their way, but like, what is it that's standing in their way?
Yeah, so there's a few different types of clients I have. With men, I have a particular cohort of clients that are wonderful. I love men. I think most men are good men, the vast, vast, vast majority, so much so that it's not even worth talking about the others. But there is a particular sort of cohort of men that are, let's say, better with technology or computers than they are with people. And so for them, straight up dating skills, like they just either haven't had the practice or the exposure or the experience or the confidence to approach women, to spend time with women. They don't have female friends or many, if any at all. And so it's literally a skill building exercise with them. And they're delightful to work with. They make great husbands, ladies, by the way.
Wait, why do they make great husbands?
Because they're sweet, typically loyal. They're good men, good people. They're not... I always tell my female clients, because women tend to be, and Scott Galloway is right about this, that women tend to be attracted on dating apps to the top 10% of men, and you can define that how you would define it. And the rest of men, whatever that means, tend not to get a lot of play on dating apps. But that top 10% of men, even if they didn't start out, I don't like to use the word narcissistic, but like self-involved and self-important and a little arrogant, dating apps have given them so much choice, the endless choice, paradox of choice, that they never make a choice. So they can sleep with whoever they want, and they can become wildly self-involved. And I warn women in general, the more charming a man is when you're dating him, the more skilled he is at dating, the less mistakes he makes socially and otherwise, the more careful you need to be. I find charm to be one of the most odious, just warning signs in both genders, not just men, women as well. It's a skill, and that's great. Some people are born with it. Some people can have developed it over time, but that is a yellow diver in the water flag. Like, if somebody's too charming, you need to really be careful. if you're meeting that person. So when I'm coaching, like I said, men who are better with technology or computers than they are with people, they don't have that charm typically. They don't have those skills. So there's a sweetness and an earnestness, and they tend to be a little clumsy. And God, you can cultivate fondness and affection for those things. To me, it's adorable and very sweet. There's other sections of men that have focused maybe professionally, and haven't gotten around. Like there are two types of, if you sort of break down men by age ranges or developmental ranges, I won't go with young, very young, because it's not important, but think of it in terms of like knight, prince, king. The knights are sort of out in the world, having adventures, rescuing princesses, like, sowing their wild oats, right? And then at some point, you sort of developmentally, you'll start to settle down and say, I want to build a kingdom and I need to figure out where to start. And there's sort of two types of princes. There's the type that wants to find a princess and build with her and build a kingdom together. And the other type that wants to build it all himself. And then once he's got sort of stuff in enough place, he wants to find a princess and then, rule the kingdom together as they grow older. And so I tend to get, in terms of matchmaking and coaching clients, men who have been the latter. They've wanted to build the kingdom before finding the right partner to share with. And so, but sometimes, it took them into their mid 40s, sometimes their early 50s, and they're like, wait a minute, now what do I do? Okay. And practically matchmaking, those are the best men for matchmaking, because it's more of a concierge-based service at that point. It's like, we can introduce you to some phenomenal women. I can see the cogs in your brain turning.
Yeah, they are. I think part of it is that I was thinking about, I guess I didn't really go through this as much. I didn't have a lot of relationships, but my belief is that there's no better way to build a kingdom than with a woman.
Yeah, you're the first of the.
I mean, like that, because what you will build is way beyond what you can imagine.
Yes. That's one of the secrets. It's probably the biggest secret that men don't know about women, aside from what we were talking about earlier, is that we are. Oh, you remember I was saying we have complementary strengths? Mm-hmm. Part of a woman's function in a man's life is to help unlock his potential, is to help make him bigger, to help him rise, to help his visions have meaning and purpose, and his life to have meaning and purpose in a way that is not possible without the right woman. Yeah. And that gets missed.
I agree.
A lot.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't want to drag you into the gender wars, but I just want to.
I'm already in them, baby.
Yeah, all right. This is such simple, sage advice, and I feel so sad because I know there's people in probably listening to this going like, well, that's not how it is, and that's just, gender's just a construct and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And I'm like, motherfucker, this shit's been going on for, hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, millennia.
And I feel sad that people have rejected this basic wisdom and felt somehow offended that we have these propensities. But you're right. As a guy, and a lot of guys I know, we're not looking for us in a skirt.
No.
We're just not.
Nope.
Because that's shitty, I mean, I'm sure some people might like it. Okay, great. Have a good time.
The men that tend to like women that are in that sort of single focus, masculine, results driven role are men that have themselves become passive or deactivated, that are looking to be taken care of, that are looking for a mommy. And I don't mean to diminish. I mean, we all have wounds. But you asked me the type of female clients I work with, and there's a range. But one of the most common things I deal with that I'm quite good at dealing with is women who have a history of choosing poorly in terms of male partners. So men who are either emotionally unavailable, physically or emotionally abusive, that type of thing. And there's a lot of women that come in exhausted from wearing the pants in a relationship, which nobody is happy about. Sorry. There are very few partnerships that I've seen where the woman is the one leading and wearing the pants and the man is the passive one in the passenger seat, just sort of receiving. That it's just not a dynamic that works for us biologically. I've just seen it over and over and over again. And so I'm not telling people how to live. Like, if that works for you, great. You know, if that dynamic makes you happy and you're fine with your husband, you know, not having a job and hanging out on the couch and playing video games while you go and work, and, you know, maybe he provides something else that works for you, great. Like, cool. That's not been my experience for the most part, and for most women. And so a lot of women don't understand that and I'll use Alison Armstrong's phrase for this, but that they're frog farmers. They don't turn frogs into princes. They turn princes into frogs. It's because we don't understand. And I don't want to lay this all on the shoulders of women, but I tend to find, as we all know, women tend to be more into personal development, more into self-awareness, personal growth. And so there tends to be, it's like, if you're waiting for the other person to change, whether it's an individual or a gender, you're going to be waiting a long time. We are responsible for ourselves, which just means we are the only ones that have the ability to respond in our own lives to our own situations. And so if you want to meet better quality men, whatever that means as a woman, or women and vice versa, you are responsible for that. And go ahead. Yeah.
You know this thing of like, I have a lot of female friends and they go, there are no good men out there.
Not true.
They're either taken or they're gay. And I'm like, really? Because I know good men. Let me meet them. You know, and I'm like, me personally, I don't want to do that kind of matchmaking too much. But
yeah.
Okay. So when you say not true, tell me what you mean. Not true.
First of all, it could be that they have broken pickers. So it could be
broken pickers.
Yeah. If we think about calibration of who we're attracted to, there are many women that I come across in my professional work who are attracted to that top tier 10% on the dating apps, who have the paradox of choice, of ultimate choice, are not going to choose, are never going to choose, or if they do choose, I mean, God, just save us all from men who have the option to sleep with as many women as they want and take that opportunity. It doesn't do good things for the soul.
It's terrible.
It's not a value judgment. It's like, do your own thing, but it's
a value judgment on my part.
It erodes the soul. It just does.
It does.
And it hurts women. It hurts women so profoundly. I think if those men who aren't on some sort of pathological spectrum truly understood the damage they do to women that they're willing to sleep with but have no intention of committing to, they wouldn't do it. And that's a whole conversation that I'm willing to have at some point, because it is devastating to women in terms of how we bond.
Can we let's get down this rabbit hole for a second, because like bonding hormones, you know, things that happen with sex with women versus men, like, let's just go a little further on this.
Yeah. How would I say this? So of course we all know, and we've all heard that women, when we have sex, we are flooded with oxytocin, which is the pair bonding hormone. That's not true for men. I hear this all the time. Men can have sex like playing tennis. It's like, it's an enjoyable, fun sport. And I find this woman attractive enough, which, I mean, is not a high bar, ladies. Sorry. It's not a high bar. And it doesn't mean he's going to commit to you if he'll sleep with you. Not even a little bit. So, hello. And also the other thing is, women don't understand, if you want to engage a man's desire to provide and protect for you, which is about giving us safety, that only happens if he becomes charmed and enchanted with you as a human being. If you lead with sex, you are going to get the most base animal instinct. And there's nothing, it's not a value judgment about right or wrong. That's how we're built. And that's how we're wired. And men don't typically understand. I'm not saying that this absolves them of responsibility, not at all. But they don't really understand, because we don't understand that we're not versions of each other, that women are not the same. We typically cannot have sex like playing tennis. We are designed to bond and to connect. So if you sleep with a woman, no matter what she says, she is bonded to you somehow. And there are almost always expectations attached to that from her side, that this means there's some sort of relationship, exclusivity, care, something, there's a there that's going to develop down the road. So I can say this until I'm blue in the face and I hear, the sort of modern feminist screaming in my ear, I can do that. I can have sex with as many men as I want. Oh, fine. Okay, great. I've seen women come to me tremendously injured from that as a behavior. And unfortunately, deeply holding the belief that in order to have a relationship with men, you have to offer sex early. Mm. And I'm sorry, that's just not my experience. It's not about playing games and falsely withholding. It's about developing true connection to the point that you have engaged a man's care, provider, and protector mode for you. So you're not just dealing with the animal primal instinct that wants to have sex like going bowling. Mm. Does that make any sense?
It does, actually, because I was thinking about what do men want, at least the men I know. They want a queen. Mm-hmm. They don't want the chambermaid. They'll roll in the sack with a chambermaid, mm-hmm. especially if she's hot.
Sure.
But like, it's funny because I've warned younger women. I've said, I've said to them, like, I know it's fun, this leading with sex stuff. I wouldn't do it. You're not gonna catch what you think you're gonna catch.
No. You will catch the worst type of man that are on the pathological spectrum that you speak about with Richard Grannon all the time, and you want to avoid. I mean, those men are so dangerous and so devastating. And the women that I deal with that have had relationships with those men are profoundly damaged. Yeah. And their ability to partner with men and trust and partner with men in the future is profoundly damaged. And that can be worked through both. Let me be clear, I'm not a psychologist and I don't treat people that way. I deal with the practicalities of learning to choose better and learning to rebuild trust and partnership and learning to identify what are real red flags and what are ego TikTok-based nonsense flags that I have to deal with all the time. But it is, that is dangerous territory. And it's also horribly hurtful to be interested in a man and sleep with him and recognize, this didn't actually mean what I thought it meant. We have to learn to be more grown up, more circumspect, more mature in terms of how we handle these things on both sides. And I
100% agree.
Can I say, I would just say one thing to men in general. If you don't understand that sleeping with a woman attaches her to you in a way that's different than for you, and you are still willing to do it and harm her, understand that you are harming all women and all men in relationships. Because a lot of, I hear this a lot when men come in, women are crazy. And that's partly the misunderstanding of how we're different and, the emotionality versus the singular focus or the desire to build connection in singular focus. But a lot of it is women are so injured from having been played with and discarded by men who probably didn't mean poorly, but they were, I want to get my rocks off and she's cute enough and, what's the harm? Because they don't understand there is harm, because it wouldn't harm a man. Does that make sense? This is the misunderstanding that we're not versions of each other,
This is actually perfect because I've expressed to you, at different times, I've said to you, I feel hurt by this hatred of men.
Yeah.
And like, I know, because in the space of narcissistic abuse, there are a lot of women who run big accounts who like very angry at men.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes I talk to them privately and I go like, it's not all of us. She goes, I know it's not all of you, but there's a lot of bad guys. I go, yeah, I get that. And it feels very hurtful because like, I'm really trying always to be a good man. And I'm not angry though at the women that hate all men. I'm really angry at whoever hurt them. Like whoever the pricks were, and I say that and I mean that hurt them so much that they now have a bad view of all men. I'm like, who were these motherfuckers? Because that's just unfortunate. Because as you say, not only has it hurt the woman, it's now hurt her ability to relate to men, and it's hurt potential future good, wonderful relationships. And it just feels fucking sad.
It is. And the truth is, men and women need each other profoundly. You know, we are like I said, complementary creatures. We're not, this might be a controversial opinion, but it's my experience. We're not complete without each other. And there are things men can give to women that women cannot get anywhere else. There is a wonderful interview that Alison Armstrong did, when she talked about when she hears women say like, what do I need a man for? And she has them answer that question for themselves. And ultimately there is a sense, I'm going to paraphrase this poorly, but it's 100% true. And I've never met a woman who hasn't felt it. Even lesbians, interestingly enough. But if you think of one man in your life who's for you, like as a woman, who truly cares for you, wants the best for you, the sense of safety that he can provide just for being for you, wanting the best for you, can never be matched in any number of female friends that you have. There's a physiological sense of being held, grounded, protected, cared for that other women cannot provide. And there is that sense of grounding creates the ability and security to rise, to grow, to be more. And when women feel safe, all the best things that men want from women come from when we feel safe. The play, the authenticity, the confidence, all the things that men find the juiciest and most attractive about women, all those things come from women when we feel safe. So if you're in a relationship, I say this to men all the time, if you're in a relationship that you're not happy with, let's say you're not getting the sex you want, which is a common complaint that I get from men in general. It goes back to how much you're providing a sense of safety for the woman who it loves you and is trying to connect with you. Usually men don't understand, because singular focus, that we are in a constant, you have to think of us like an auto redial fax machine from the 80s. We are, as women, constantly dialing out for connection. So you guys, you're in your office, you're working, and Bonnie like opens the door, honey, and trying to connect. Asking a question, and you're like, wait, what? And sort of disgruntled, and then all of a sudden she's been displeasing. And you're just like, no, you're in singular focus. We don't know what that's like, right? Yeah. We don't understand the degree of like energy that goes into providing results in that one thing that you're focused on, and to be pulled away from it even temporarily. It's not that you're upset, but it's
like a shock.
It's like a shock. Yeah. And it takes a while for your brain to like, and there can be irritation and all the things, right? But what that experience is for us is, oh, we're disconnected. Oh, he's mad at me. Oh, I'm not loved anymore. I'm not going to be. Anyway.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, we've had those things in our house, and we laugh about them now.
Yeah. Because I'm sorry, I shouldn't have used you guys as an example.
No. There's that thing. And by the way, I think Bonnie did do that experiment. How many women would it take versus the safety of that one person?
Yeah.
And she said there isn't a number.
There is no number. Yeah. I mean, that, and vice versa for men. The kind of, that phrase, behind every like successful man is a powerful woman. It's a great woman, or whatever. Yeah. It's true.
It is true.
It's true.
It is true. I mean, I think the one thing I want to voice is that, I kind of want women to hear this, is when we're bonded to a woman, we will die for her.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, the knight in shining armor, like it's a fantasy. Like, that's how we feel. Like there is no value in life if something happens to her, therefore I will die for her. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's in there. It's not like you have to make it up or something. It's like, that's just how it feels. I'm not sure if women know that as much. I don't know. Maybe
I don't think so. Women, we don't. No, because we're so different in that way. And the one thing I would say is there's a whole huge amount of work I do with women to help them start to see and appreciate men differently, and how that frog farming happens, where we bring out the worst in men in particular.
That's interesting. Frog farming, I like that.
And when you change your approach to men and you start to understand how different we are, and you change behavior, you start to see the best come out in men. So to go back to your point that all these female friends that you have are saying there's no good men out there, that's not true. I mean, it depends who you're trying to meet. And it also depends how significant a frog farmer you are. But I was going to say something you were asking earlier, and this is to your point just now about how men would die for women they care for. And even they don't care for that much. Like, that's how good men are, really. Like, y'all will sacrifice in a real profound way. It's beautiful. The thing men don't understand is it's a beautiful thing to be willing to die for, but God be willing to live for. Like the way that many men are behind in the dating sphere right now is the highest value asset that women are looking for in male partners is emotional intelligence. And a lot of men, you know, it's not like it was in the 50s and the 60s and 70s and 80s and whatever. You can't just bring home the bacon, the proverbial bacon, and then kick your feet up on the couch and refuse to connect. You know, it doesn't work that way. And women often say to me as clients, I want an emotionally intelligent man who's more like kind of like a woman, right? It's like, no, you don't. You do not. You do not want that. You think you do, but just notice how you react when a man cries in front of you and, you know, gets vulnerable or admits that he's afraid or needs something that you don't want to give, you know? You don't want that. You wish you did. You think you do, but you do not. You do not feel safe with a man who goes too far into that sort of female mode. I mean, if he visits, fine, but if he sleeps there and spends any time, no, sorry. But what we do want is men who have enough emotional intelligence to be curious about us and to meet our bids for connection. So not everyone, but most.
But most. I hear some people listening going, you know, she's just saying that women have to change.
Oh,
like, why is it that we have to do all the change?
Yeah.
Why can't they fucking change?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
I'm definitely not saying that. As a woman, I can speak to what has worked for me and what works for, you know, I would say I coach 70% female clients, 30% male, and I matchmake 100% male clients unless it's by invitation for women, and that's something else, and there's reasoning behind that. I think I speak to, like I said before, that women proportionately have a higher level of emotional intelligence or relational intelligence because we are built to build connection, to create connection. And so if you want to see results in an area of your life quickly, it's you have more power to make change than you realize as a woman. But definitely this is also a call to action to men to understand a little bit more, a lot more hopefully, about what your female partners or women that you're looking for actually need and what you're willing to provide, which has to do with understanding, being curious about. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about what makes me feel the most loved. And I think this is true for a lot of women, but what makes me feel the most loved by men, but in people in general, but I think by men, is when a man that I care for or love is curious about me and wants to know what I think, what I feel. Just, you know, being curious about your partner is a really big deal. And women are inherently more curious about their partners because that's one of the fundamental ways we build connection. That's why we ask you lots of questions.
And safety, right?
And safety. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So the more you tell us about yourself, the more you're willing to talk to us, the more, you know, emotional aspects, not emotionality, but, you know, the truth of your life and who you are. We want to know those things because that makes us feel special and chosen by you and connected to you. And then we feel safe. And then we want to give all the wonderful things that you love and appreciate. But the problem is, like, if you ever, I ask this, what men are like, but why do you need it all day, every day? Why do you need constant connection? Like, you know, I connected with you yesterday. Like, why do you need it today and tomorrow and la la la? And think of it this way, as a man, how many times a day do you need to eat? And what happens to you when you get hungry? Because when single focus gets hungry, the world falls away, and that's the only. my ex-husband, literally I'd walk into the kitchen after work and every cupboard would be open. The fridge door might be sort of like semi-ajar, and I'd see him on the couch and he'd be surrounded by whatever it was he was eating. And it's just that singular focus mindset, like hungry now, eat now, right? And that happens at least 3 times a day and nothing else matters. Think of a woman's need for connection with that level of need. The same thing that happens to you when you're hungry happens to us. It expires. Like at some point, yeah.
No, it's so true. And I was thinking about, men's misunderstanding of like, well, why isn't she in the mood for sex? Why isn't she in the mood for play? Why isn't she in the mood for this? And, I've learned over time, well, she doesn't feel safe,
Yeah.
If she feels safe, then she feels a whole bunch. Then this is what I understand. Tell me what you think.
Yeah.
If she feels safe, it opens the door of possibilities, the range of things that she wants to experience. That's what I believe now.
Yeah.
And I think that, and maybe there's some men that think, oh, so it's a chore. It's like foreplay. Make her feel safe, make her feel safe, make her feel safe. Now let's go have sex. As opposed to, no, that's part of the, what was it, the thing you said that men love? Oh, they said they love women with a sense of play, you said.
Yeah. Men are most attracted to women when we're playful, when we're joking, when we are relaxed and play comes out. And that only comes from a sense of we feel safe, and that safety comes from connection. So men have to start to recognize when women are creating bids for connection. We both do it. Both genders do it. And we're sometimes very bad. The Gottmans talk about this a lot, how important it is to start to recognize bids for connection and accept those or meet those with a partner. But men's singular focus often doesn't recognize a woman's bid for connection and how significant it is. Sometimes that feeling of like, I just worked a full day, I'm exhausted, I want to come home, I want to watch television. She wants to sit and talk for a little bit. She wants to tell you about her day. She wants to know what's going on with you. And you're just like, I have no energy left to give to anyone. And then she doesn't want to sleep with you. It's like, yeah, her bid for connection was rejected. That is devastating for women in a profound way. And that's probably a whole other conversation. But you have to understand, when she makes a bid for connection and you reject it, whether it's just because you're tired or you didn't notice it because you're singularly focused on something else, that is like an existential, that feeling of not being useful and being annihilated or erased that men have when they can't be useful? Same level of annihilation when a woman's bid for connection is either rejected or ignored. And enough of that happening over time where, men are like, I don't want to have to do the emotional labor in this relationship, and they make the woman carry the vast majority of it. Women get tired and they give up eventually. It's true. I heard this somewhere on one of the socials, but it's true. If you've got a woman like texting you angry paragraphs about what she's upset about, good. She loves you. She's trying to make the relationship work. That's a great sign. If you stop getting those paragraphs and she's not really talking to you and you're still not having great or even reasonable sex or not having sex at all ever, she's checked out, and you're massively, massively in a danger zone. Men have to understand women cannot be ignored. If you love a woman, ignoring her and her bids for connection will annihilate your relationship and all the good things you want. Yeah, I mean, she might physically go through the motions of sleeping with you. Often we do out of a sense of duty, or maybe we even want to in the sense of like, I care about you. But you have to engage a woman. You can't just engage a woman physiologically, like biologically. Women also, the way we're stimulated, it has to do with desire and intellect. And I recommend a lot. I was actually thinking about, there was a podcast episode you did with Richard Grannon where you guys were talking about these romantasy books and like vampire, vampire.
Oh, yes, the vampire episode.
Yeah. And I thought it was hilarious. I was like laughing out loud as I was listening to you guys explain as men why women like these books and what it all means. And, I think Richard said something about he's had women tell him that they are not attracted to men that can't kill them or something. I was just like, and what all that means. And I was like, oh my God.
By the way, I did not know if that was true. I just thought that's pretty fucked up. That's fucked up.
No. If you have a girlfriend who's got a pen pal in prison, there are other deeper issues happening that have nothing to do with that. But what I've recommended to a lot of men when they don't understand how to turn a woman on, or what, like, they're like, oh, you know, it's really, I don't get it. Like, why doesn't she just turn on like a car engine like I do? Like, I can just be ready. Let's go. You know, a stiff breeze, like a little bit of side boob in the morning after the shower. Like, let's go. It just doesn't work that way. So I was like, read some of these books. What I see, it's not the only thing. I mean, the sex is very smutty and it's great. But but what women need, the way men need to be respected and appreciated, women need to be adored. And that's what is in a lot of these books. It's not about men being perfect. It's about these women feeling chosen. And very often men don't realize that women interpret their bids for connection being either ignored or rejected, men not even realizing they're doing it, or sort of doing it and not wanting to admit that they just don't want to do the emotional labor.
Right.
Not realizing that how annihilating that is. And that kills desire. Absolutely kills desire.
Yeah. That is so interesting. The wanting to be adored, which is interesting.
Not wanting to be adored, needing.
Needing
to be adored.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And you adore. Yeah, you adore
my wife.
Yeah.
I adore my wife.
Yeah. The most successful partners do. And the thing is, women have a big role in how that works with a partner. Frog farmers don't realize the ways that we unintentionally, unconsciously emasculate men and thereby make it impossible for them to adore us. It's a natural byproduct when men feel respected and appreciated, typically. And a woman they like and they admire. Men don't choose. Yes. By the way, here, can I say something that women don't know, men don't know? Yeah. You know it in practice, but you don't really realize what it means. Women don't realize that when men choose a female partner, or choose a woman, they pick up the whole package. They're not trying to change her. They've very thoughtfully considered all of the aspects that they can see of who she is. And men are very astute and very emotionally intelligent. And by the way, extremely sensitive, much more sensitive than women, in my experience.
More than women?
Much more, in certain ways, absolutely. And we can get into that argument later. There's a lot to talk about. But men choose the whole package. Women do not. Women are like, oh, I like this, I like that, but maybe I can change this. Maybe I can.
That is true.
100%.
Thinking of former marriages and relationships, it's like, well, he's half baked. I'm going to get him fully baked.
Yeah. And it's like, no. You can see the potential in a male partner and how a woman's contribution can help him rise and be more. But he already has to have that desire in him and that potential in him. Like you cannot change anyone. Not really. Not they have the ability to do that themselves, but we're self-rising cakes in that sense. I don't know if this makes any sense to you, but like I would say that the thing that women can learn most in terms of choosing partners from men is stop trying to change. Pick up the whole package. And accept the pieces. Either decide whether you can live with the things you can't, you think you can, or not, or don't choose. Don't choose.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I was thinking about my thinking, feeling process. And the men I know. Like, yes, when we choose a woman, we're going ahead decades.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But I'm assuming that women are also doing the same thing.
No.
Women are also going ahead decades.
No, sorry.
What?
No. No.
Tell me. This doesn't make sense to me.
For most women, I love him is enough. And I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't take a lot to get to that, but many women are like, well, love is the foundation and I love him and I like being around him and no. And that's enough. And everything you have from all your clients. This is what you're gleaning from your clients. The science is in, like the data is in, and anecdotally, it's what I deal with constantly. Now, to be fair, this is just how it is. I was going to say, I think potentially it might be slightly different for couples who've been partnered long term, but I don't think that's true. I think one of the reasons people can stay single longer than they want to be is the list of requirements to partner is too long and miscalibrated. the things that actually have no significant meaning are weighted much heavier than the things that are very important. We don't choose wisely. But particularly, no, I mean, women will commit to somebody and often want commitment from a man much sooner than he's willing to, because he's in that process of thinking about the whole package and projecting 10, 20, 30 years in the future. She's not doing that. She's like, no, I love you and I like spending time with you. And
that is news to me.
No, absolutely. And listen, again, I'm going to get hate from, of course, there are exceptions to this rule. Of course, women think about, would he be a good father? You know, if they want children.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but it's a yes or a no. It's that intuitive, typically it's that intuitive sense. And very often what gets in the way of this for both genders, and I got to be real about this, is, chemistry. It's the worst. Chemistry is the worst thing that I deal with. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't be attracted to their partners and shouldn't want to touch all the things and do all the things. Of course, that's important. But we weight the immediate desire to tear another person's clothes off as the highest value indicator of potential matchiness, potential success in a relationship. And that's almost never true.
It's just the DNA talking. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not advocating for any particular behavior, but if that's the vibe you've got with somebody, then go ahead and touch all your bits and then see what happens. But let's not try to force a long-term committed relationship just because there's enough sexual chemistry that we want to have a good time with that person.
Where did we go astray? Because, you know, the things you and I are talking about here, I know there's some people that go like, well, this sounds very right-wing, traditional, blah, 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 blah.
So
blah,
weird
blah,
to
blah.
me that people think that I'm so
They
not.
do.
Yeah.
They do. And I'm like, I don't know. This is the way it's been done for like millions of years. I don't understand what's going on. But where did we... What the fuck happened that we ended up here where there's this devastating inability to connect?
I mean, I think there's so many factors. You know, happy people are not easily controlled. Sexually satisfied people who are happy are not easily controlled. It's better for money and clicks for people to be in conflict. Hating each other and in conflict. Like, there's a lot of motivation for us as consumers to be disconnected. Happy couples that I know, they don't spend a lot of money typically. And I don't mean that they don't have a great life and travel and do all those things. I just mean they're happy with each other. They like hanging out at home, making love, making food, or going for dinner. You know, like, it's not, we're not big consumers. If you're happy, you're not looking for things to fill the hole in the same way as those of us who aren't. I think that's a big piece of it.
That is very true. That is very true.
And
you're a terrible consumer.
Yeah.
That's one thing. You're a terrible consumer. Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you're happy and you're loved and you are loving someone else, I mean, it's harder to sell you weight loss products. It's harder to sell you penis enlargement products. It's harder to sell you all of the things you think the society tells you you need to be happy, because you already are. You've got someone who loves you that you love. That is one of the most, probably in my experience, the most deeply satisfying experience that exists. If you've chosen well and somebody has chosen you well, love is all. I mean, I've spent a lot of time at end of life with certain people. I used to volunteer with an organization where I spent a lot of time with people at end of life and in their last hours, minutes, days. And the only thing those people are thinking about is how much love they have in their lives and the people that are there to share it with them at the end. That's it. That's the biggest thing. So, I mean, we are built as human animals to connect and to love and be loved. The best things in life come from that, period. And
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Let me ask you a question. Am I hearing noise on my end or your end?
I can't tell. Let me take off my headphones for a second. No. Oops. It's my end. It sounds like somebody's moving a piano. I'm so sorry.
I think I can get rid of it though.
Okay.
I think don't worry. I'm going to go like another 5 minutes. Then we can
1 second. Let me just
I know
fix
there's going to be.
these. All right.
There's going to be so many comments that we're going to have to do another one. But so I'm just thinking about, given that we seem to, as men and women, not seem to understand what actually makes the other sex, the other species, actually find us interesting and attractive and want to, be with us.
Yeah.
What is that noise?
I don't know. I'm so sorry.
Oh, they're cleaning.
I guess so. Or there's a spaceship up there. Oh my God, Mark, I'm so sorry. Did it stop?
Don't worry.
Did it stop?
I think it stopped.
Okay, let's fingers crossed.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so what do we each need to understand about what the other sex wants? Because I think based on this conversation, I think we're just missing the boat. I'm just saying, when I say we, the species, we're just kind of missing the boat a lot. What do men need to understand about what women are looking for? Generally speaking, very generally speaking.
What women? I'm not sure if that's exact. I don't mean to correct you, but I'm not sure if that's exactly the question.
Okay.
I think it's what I opened with, which is about who we both need to be. And who we both need to be is curious, genuinely curious about the other, genuinely understanding, or at least being curious about what I'm saying, that we are not misbehaving versions of each other, that we are just fundamentally, profoundly different, and being curious about that experience. And if men can start to truly understand that women are seeking connection and what that means, that all the good things that they want from a woman comes from responding positively to those bids for connection. And it's okay. You don't have to, I'm not suggesting that at every given moment, singular focus is real. So, it's not available at every moment. That's where women's responsibility comes in, to being curious about and understanding the male experience and how beautiful that is, but how different it is. So it all comes from honestly, from curiosity, goodwill, presuming goodwill, that things are well intended or not poorly intended is a big thing. And then, one of the things I work on a lot with clients is something that I call fostering fondness. So we don't realize how much power we have to actually, and should use, how much power we have and should use to foster fondness for the qualities in another person that are different from our own, that we can learn to fall in love with those things and appreciate those things. That is a key. Very often one of the biggest misunderstandings that I see when I deal with clients is sort of people unconsciously come in looking for what they can get from another person. And love is about what you can give. Love is about being loving to others. And that doesn't mean, oh my God, there's so many things that doesn't mean. It doesn't mean, being permissive. It doesn't mean allowing behavior that's unacceptable or abusive. It doesn't mean any of those things. But being curious about others is a loving behavior. Presuming goodwill or good intention rather than assuming the opposite, which we all do out of our injuries. Starting to notice the difference between judgment and discernment, because we've all been taught, especially in the dating world, to be wildly judgmental and extremely intolerant of other human beings. The way we date is appalling. We literally sit across from another human being with a mental checklist of the things that the great I needs to have from this other plebeian that has yet to prove themselves worthy of the wonderful me. And we're just running through that checklist, looking for what's wrong with the other person so that we can discard them and move on to somebody better at some point. If there is a recipe for failure in terms of building relationships and connection, that would be it. And also coming in with the presumption, I'm sorry, this makes me laugh, but it's devastating because I get this all the time. Presuming that you should be able to tell within the first 10 minutes, let alone the first hour, whether or not you can spend your life with someone is ludicrous. Ludicrous. I guess the last sort of thing I would say is, if you're single and you don't want to be, and you're dating, understand that dating is just about data gathering. It's a science experiment. You cannot rush that data gathering. It happens over time. there are strategies that women use that are very different from men to try to assess in a very feminine way by asking questions, the way a woman would ask questions of other women, to assess whether this man is ready for a real relationship. And, so we can sort of mitigate that risk factor of investing time, energy, money, effort into somebody that may not pay off in the end. And men have their strategy for doing that same thing. Doesn't work, people. The only way relationships are built is through curiosity over time and experience.
That got me thinking, because you said something about the wounds. What advice do you have for people that have that wounding? Because, I'm assuming people come and they say, well, I've had all these terrible experiences. Let's say a woman comes and says, I've had all these terrible experiences with men. I find men that do this, men do that. I don't know how to open myself again. I don't know how to be vulnerable. And so they've built a cage. What advice do you have for people that walk around with a cage, which I understand?
Yeah. And it's very understandable. Like, I'm not in any way trying to minimize the injuries people have. Especially women are typically far more injured than men when it comes to dating. There's a lot of bad behavior that we could argue about whether or not it's intentional. I don't think a lot of it is. But it doesn't matter because the damage is the same and it's real. And here are the things I would say to answer your question. If you need psychological help, get it. Definitely understand that something that I've learned in my life is pay for the help you need, and do that fast. It's worth the investment. It's worth not taking your holiday to Rome this summer to get sort of the help you need in an area of your life that you want to see transformed. So if you need psychological help, get it. Find somebody who's good and competent, because there's a lot of terrible therapists out there.
Yes.
Yeah. With dating, same thing. There's those of us that exist for a reason, that are here to help. And if you can't afford one-to-one, there are wonderful coaches that do group stuff and whatever. I think the thing that I've learned about coaching and consulting, and this is a fine line, a question that I get a lot. I'm not a psychologist. I don't want to be a psychologist. We don't analyze people psychologically in terms of, when people are dating, but there are skills and tools. A lot of people that, let's say, have a broken picker that's miscalibrated, and it's created injury or issues or whatever, cannot recognize what good men, good behavior. I mean, it's so confusing. People don't even realize how to do the work. They need somebody to sort of be with them to sort of help them in real time. The other technique that I recommend is try, at least for a bit, if you don't have enough friends, do that first. You need more than just a romantic partner. So if you don't have enough male or female friends, a lot of men and women don't like each other, and they don't know that. They're attracted to each other, but they don't know what they like about the opposite gender. They may not like anything. Figure that out first. Because if you don't like someone that you're dating, just fundamentally because of the attributes of their gender or the differences we have, that is going to come out in your relationship, and it's going to be super unpleasant. We also know from the science that the longest term, happiest relationships are rooted in friendship, period. Whether it starts as sort of sexual compatibility, it becomes companionate love over time, and that's what makes people happy. So you better figure out how to like the person that you're with on as many levels as you can. And one of the pieces of advice that I give is, if a lot of people sort of fear rejection, fear like the whole process of dating, start dating people that you don't initially find super conventionally attractive or conventionally good looking. Just be willing, like, it dials down the pressure, it dials down the anxiety, dials down the fear of rejection, and just gives you the opportunity to practice and build connection. And I always recommend that for at least a few months, and you'll find unilaterally that you end up building connections with people that you may never have considered as real possibilities. And this is, I hate this phrase. I don't want to, what is it? I don't want to settle. I don't want to settle. What are we talking about here? Are you trying to tell me that somebody who's not as conventionally good looking or attractive on some sort of randomized Western scale is therefore a less valuable person, and therefore incapable of making you happy in a relationship, and therefore settling is what that means? If this is a belief system we have, let's talk about that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that
Thank you, Walt Disney.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be attracted to or want to do all the fun things with somebody that you're with. You definitely want to have great sexual chemistry. But there are other very important factors as well.
Yes.
And we need to treat dating a little more like a science experiment than we do.
Yes.
To be successful.
Yes. You know, I love these conversations because they've been on my mind so much.
Yep.
And especially because of like the enormous amount of hatred. And I guess, and I do feel very lucky. I think I have an incredible marriage. I have an incredible relationship.
Yep.
And sometimes I go like, why can't we just all connect and you can find your person, you know, if that's your destiny, you know?
Yeah.
And I think there's so much in the way, but I think the thing I didn't really truly appreciate is how much misunderstanding is in the way.
Huge misunderstanding.
I mean, the whole thing you told me about estrogen and diffuse attention. I mean, I've been walking around that for a week thinking, holy shit, that explains so much. And also helped me understand and temper my intolerance that I've had my whole life at different times.
Yeah.
Why is my female friend like this? Why is my mom like this? Why is this? Why is that? Why aren't they more like me? You know, that very arrogant perspective.
Yeah. I mean, we all have that. All we have is our subjective experience of life, right? And it's very hard to be curious. Sometimes I don't even think we really know to be curious. We have to sort of cultivate that in ourselves, I think.
Yeah.
I certainly did.
Yeah.
I certainly had to cultivate that curiosity. But I think if you want better relationships, which is a better life, let me be clear, better relationships is a better life, then it requires work. It requires effort. This is the one area of life that we've been conditioned to believe should require no effort and no investment or development or, you know, when I hear people tell me that they won't pay $35 a month to be on an app, or don't get me wrong, apps are terrible, but people do meet that way. But if you're not willing to spend $35 a month for an app, or you're not willing to pay for somebody's dinner, and we can talk about that whole thing. Men, that is your obligation, by the way, and that's not about the patriarchy. That's just, I mean, let's make that argument later.
Oh, let's fuck talking about the patriarchy. Oh my God. I'm so tired of it.
Yeah. However, but these things good things in life don't come to you without effort. You wouldn't expect, hopefully, a successful career or a promotion or anything of value that you didn't have to put hard work and effort into. I get that it appears to happen effortlessly for some people. Those people tend to be the people that had not easy, that's not right, but they tended to have developmentally stable, happier families. Yeah. They didn't deal with addiction, abuse. They had an easier go. You know, there's about a third of us in the population who didn't have the easiest go in early childhood. And it's harder for us. It's true. And it's still totally possible. It's still not just totally possible. It just requires work and effort and investment. So
it does. I was just thinking, if somebody said to me, well, what do you think it takes to be a high value man or a high value woman? And I was thinking about it. I was thinking, just be a good human being, first of all. Don't be a complete asshole. And that does take work, I think. You know, because all of us are like little shits when we're teenagers.
Yeah. We're all on some level like, self-involved and
so narcissistic. I mean, I honestly look at myself as a teenager. I mean, God, was I narcissistic? And then life has its way of humbling you. But yeah, this is a lot to think about. And I'm really curious to know. My podcast, this particular podcast, is mostly female. It's about 67% female. So I really would love to hear from all the listeners, not just the women, the men as well. Obviously, yeah. I'm not saying men, you can't say anything.
Yeah. But
I'd really like to hear some of your thoughts, on this. And Carina, what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, sure.
How do they best find you?
They can reach me at, probably email is the easiest, info@loveatlas.com. So that's LOVEATLAS.com. Email me if you need something. You can find me on LinkedIn, but yeah.
You're on LinkedIn, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm not a social media kind of gal, but I am on LinkedIn. And I've liked to fly under the radar because I take a very small number of clients. I work very personally with people. But yeah, you can find me that way. And you can always find me through Mark. You can always hit up Mark. He can send people and I don't want any of the mean comments, please.
You know,
I'll probably get them, but
the thing is, unfortunately, I have to tell you, I got a letter this morning from somebody.
Oh no.
I just have to finish with this.
Yeah.
I had a letter from somebody. Somehow they got my actual email address because I have a few. I have the assistant email address, like my personal email address.
Yeah.
And they just gave me a talking to about what I've done with my life and the way I'm sort of processing the things I've gone through, and like, you know, I shouldn't be doing it in public, and I shouldn't have a podcast. I shouldn't this, I shouldn't that.
Oh my God.
And I sent it to Bonnie, you know, because I was disturbed. You know?
Yeah.
Because I don't get it a lot. I mean, I used to get it a lot. Like, you know, Twitter, my God, you know, TikTok, Instagram.
Yeah.
And I said to Bonnie, I said, like, what do you think? She says, you know, I got to tell you, Mark, you just attract this shit. I'm like, why? She says, there's a thing in, what is the human design, which I don't know a lot about. And in human design, there's something that Bonnie told me about called a 5-line, like a 5-1. I have no idea what this means. And I said, well, what is a 5-line? She's basically, everybody projects their shit on you. And they love you or they hate you. There is no like, there's no in between.
Yep.
They adore you or they just hate you with a passion. I don't think that's the case with you, but there's always, and here's the thing I think that's important. Let's say there are some negative comments. I think it's really important. And I've said this on my channel before, like we have to grow up. Yeah. If any of you that are now typing furiously and you've gotten this far at the very end, we have to grow up, and we have to realize that there are other people with other ideas. And there is also, by the way, this is my rant quickly, Carina. Yeah. There's also theory about how the world works. Yep. Which you can learn in universities. Mm-hmm. And I went to university, and I was like, when I left, I was like, my God, what these people are talking about, nothing to do with reality. Yep. And then there's reality. Yep. Like the way things really work versus what a professor taught you. They are not the same thing. And that is why I personally love talking to people that have been through hell. Because the people that have been through hell, I can actually have a conversation with them. They actually have real fucking wisdom, as opposed to, you know, some professor in some university. And
borrowed knowledge.
Borrowed knowledge. Some of them are my friends, by the way, so I don't want to shit on them too much. Some of them even listen to this podcast. Yay. And some of them are like, I know he's talking about me. I might be.
No, I was going to say, I mean, here's the real fundamental truth. I'm not sitting here saying I'm right. This is what my experience is. This is what is useful to the clients who choose to work with me. This is what I've seen be successful. And it doesn't mean it's for you. There are a lot of other ways that things work. If this isn't it, no problem. No problem. This works for who it works for. And, you know, I have a good business because of it. But I'm not suggesting you adopt my ideas or my beliefs. If they're useful, great. Yeah. If they aren't, just leave it behind. No problem.
Well, I do know you do have a very good business, and you have some amazing clients as well, which is very cool.
I'm very lucky.
So listen, thank you for this chat today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
And I'm sure that there's going to be all kinds of questions, and we might have to do this again.
Okay, great. Thank you for this. And thanks to everybody who's hung in with us so far. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.